everyone. So welcome to British Science Week. And we are Incredible Oceans. I'm Abby. I've been working with Incredible Oceans for a couple of years now, and I focus all on the conservation and sort of endangered animal type things. I'm going to be speaking to you about plastics, and Russell and Sophia are going to introduce themselves shortly too. We have a Q&A, so any questions that come up, please pop them in the Q&A and we'll be answering them at the end. We'd also love to know where you guys are, so we can see that we've got West Ashstead Primary School already and Tudor Court Primary. So let us know how you're doing today and we'll be reading that out too. Okay, on to Sophia.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia and I am, well, a bit of a rock star for Incredible Oceans. My job is all to do with geology and geography and rocks. So I get to go out and look at cliffs and go to beaches and be by the sea and all kinds of fun things. I'm going to talk about deep sea mining today. So mining on the ocean floor and how that's linked back to electric cars that you might see down your roads, which is going to be really exciting. So I think that's a really good ocean innovation. I'm going to pass over to Russell. Russell's going to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name's Russell. I am the geeky nerd guy at Incredible Oceans. So what I love doing is taking something that is really interesting and making it super nerdy and weird. And so everyone's like, why would I care about this? But then I go so nerdy about it. Everyone's like, oh, I love it. I didn't realize that fact about it. Oh, we're going to start with my nerdy video. Okay. So one of the things that I really love, and I'm based at the University of Bath, and I'm a marine biologist, and everyone goes, oh, whoa, you're a marine biologist. That's amazing. You must study dolphins or sea turtles or sharks. And then I say, no, I'm sorry. I don't study any of those things. I study plankton. And everyone goes, what? Plankton? What even is plankton? What is plankton? So I'm going to tell you what plankton is. So plankton are teeny, teeny, tiny plants and animals that live in all the water. They live in oceans, they live in lakes, rivers and seas, sometimes even live in puddles. So, you might even have some in your school pond, in a pond in your garden. It's basically like that green stuff that grows. That's a type of plant, phytoplankton. And you're like, what? That's a plant? So these plants are so small. If you imagine how thick one of your hairs is, that's how tiny these plants are. And they're absolutely tiny. So already you're like, what? There's tiny, tiny plants living in all the water. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So why should I care about these tiny plants? I'm like, well, let me tell you. You're all here, you're all back at school, and you're all sitting in your classroom, and it's like Thursday morning. So what I'd like you all to do is take a great big breath in, go, and then breathe that out. And that breath came from the trees. Now, this is what we're taught at school, that all the plants on the land, the grasses, the trees, and the bushes, they make the oxygen that keeps us alive. Now, what I'd like you to do is take a second breath and breathe that one out. Now, that breath didn't come from the trees. That breath came from the seas. That's right. Half of the oxygen we breathe comes from these tiny plankton that grow in all of the water. Isn't that crazy? So even if you don't live anywhere near the sea, the plankton in the sea are still making oxygen that keeps you alive, which is really cool. Now, one of the tricky things about studying plankton is they're really small. So I have to use microscopes all the time to look at them and look at different types. Some people think there's like 2 million different types. 2 million different types of plankton. This is a lot of different types of plankton. And I'll be honest, I'm not very good at figuring out which one's which. So I've got a special electron microscope. I just pour the water in the top and it photographs with a laser all the cool different plankton cells and takes a photo of them, and then I can just like check them out later. So I got thinking, like, I'm lucky enough to have this really cool microscope. I wondered if I could show you guys how to make kind of a really easy, simple microscope so you can play around with at home. And it's super easy. All you need is a mobile phone and a drop of water. So I'm going to go to our first little video that's going to show us how to turn your mobile phone into a microscope. Here we go. Roll it, Sophia. As someone who studies plankton, I obviously have to use microscopes a lot of the time, and I'm going to show you how to make your own digital microscope using only 3 things. So first of all, you're going to need a phone, and I've got to say, this is my phone. It's not a particularly good phone. It cost me about 50 quid, but any phone with a front-facing camera, that's what you need. Secondly, you need a glass of water, delicious. And thirdly, you need a straw or a syringe. So what you're going to do, you need to open up your phone and you need to switch it to the selfie camera, the selfie mode, right at the front of your screen. Fantastic. I'm going to put that down. And what we need to find is your little selfie camera there at the front. Secondly, what you need to do, get your glass of water, get your straw, poke it in just a little bit and then put your thumb over the top of it. So you trap a little bit of water just there in the front of it. And then what we're going to do is very carefully drop it onto the front facing camera. And you want to do about 2 drops, gently releasing it by taking your thumb off the end like this. Right. Now, what I've got is a droplet of water over the front of my front facing camera, and that is actually going to act as a microscope lens. So what I can do is now, instead of being able to focus on me, it can actually focus and zoom in on my finger. You can see there, look at that. You can see my fingerprint. I've got a bit of leaf from the garden. Oh, wow, look at that. That's so cool. Oh yeah. I've got a pen, and let's look at this. But you can have a go at looking at whatever you like under a microscope. Even if I zoom into me, right up my nose there. Thanks for watching, and post any photos or videos that you take using your own digital microscope below. I want to see what you guys have done. Thank you for watching. That is how easy it is to turn your mobile phone into a microscope. You just put a drop of water on the front facing camera. Here we go. So I was aware that I didn't show off some very good things then, like up my nose and the end of a pen. But there are some really cool things that I recommend looking at. And so sand, any type of sand or dust, if you can get that on the end of your finger and like hang that over the phone, it looks amazing. Newspaper print, like you get a picture on a newspaper and you can look at that and it's loads and loads of dots. I really love looking at leaves and grasses. They look really cool under a microscope. Obviously your fingerprint, and you can look up your nose and stick your tongue out and all those things. And you can take photos because it's your mobile phone. What else looks cool? Feathers. Feathers look amazing. And weirdly enough, if you get another mobile phone and you hold your mobile phone over the top of it, you can see all the dots that make it up, which is really cool. I don't know if you can see that on my webcam, but it's made up of tiny little, you can see all the pixels. A piece of hair looks really good. Some material, just like from your t-shirt or just any material, cotton or like an old rag and things. And obviously, I'm a big nerd. I like looking at rocks under it as well, which is pretty cool. But one of the coolest things, I showed my sister how to turn her phone into a microscope. And so she went and bought this thing, which is called a mini museum. And what it's got is loads and loads of really cool things that are tiny that you can look at underneath your microscope and you can hold it over. So I've actually got some tiny baby starfish there. Look at that. I've got a piece of Stegosaurus. I've got a piece of mammoth tusk. I've got some asteroids. So I would definitely recommend getting one of these mini museums because you're like, oh yeah, I've got all this cool stuff. And you can tell all your friends, like, I've got a museum in my house. So there we go. That is how to turn a mobile phone into a microscope. So it'd be awesome. What I'd love to see is you guys taking loads of photos at home. Maybe you can even do it for homework. That's a good idea. Hey, teachers, take loads of photos. And if you've got Twitter, tweet them to us, or Instagram. We want to see all your really cool microscope photos that you've taken, and we'll send them out over our channel, because leads me on nicely. We've got a YouTube channel, Incredible Oceans, and we're on all the social media stuff. So definitely check us out for more really awesome educational content. So now what I'm going to do, I've stopped talking because I've bored you enough about them. I'm going to switch to Abby, and Abby's going to go, Brett.
Hello. Okay, so we've already got loads of questions about plastic coming up in the Q&A, which is fantastic. And my video is a little bit longer, so I think we're just going to head straight into it. And if you've got any questions, we can have a bit of a chat about it in Q&A, but I'll chat about it a little bit briefly after. So here is my video.
Any natural or wild space will be brimming with wildlife, from tiny little insects to foxes and rabbits. This is one of my favourite locations for watching wildlife. It's in a woodland just behind where I live. I thought that I would come down here today to check out the stream and have a little look and share what I find, but not a lot is actually going on, and I think I might know why. I think it's very easy to think small, but when we think big, we realise that these small pieces of litter not only have the potential to harm local wildlife here, but wildlife and the ecosystems of our oceans, so it matters. And it can be overwhelming, but there are actually 4 ways which can help us to manage our waste. Reuse. Instead of throwing items away, you or someone you know can reuse materials in their original form. Reduce. Use natural resources wisely, using only what you absolutely need to avoid waste. Refuse. Do not buy unnecessary things or products that are or come in single-use packaging. Say no. Recycle. Have your own recycling mission. Don't throw away anything that could be recycled. Throwaway plastic has found its way into almost every aspect of our lives, from disposable coffee cups, the straws in your smoothies, to tiny glittering fragments in your toys. UK households throw out more than 25 million tonnes of rubbish a year, less than half of which gets recycled. The other 55% either ends up in landfill or, increasingly, it is burned in incinerators to generate energy. There are biodegradable and compostable options for takeaway foods and packaging, but it's not as simple as putting these items in your compost or the black bin. Unfortunately, most biodegradable or compostable plastics made from natural substances don't break down in home composts, landfills, or loose in the environment like you'd think. Most require commercial composting facilities like this one here, which aren't always available to the average consumer. Bioplastics can also contaminate usual recycling programs when people unknowingly add them to their recycling bins. Many bioplastics even contain significant amounts of conventional plastic. In one of our other videos, we learned how surfers are learning to use natural alternative materials that are fully compostable, like mushroom and algae. The solution, according to plastic pollution experts, is not to continue our reliance on single-use products, but to avoid single-use products altogether. There are many easy swaps we can all make that will help begin to cut plastic pollution. And here's 10 tips to help you reduce your plastic use. I found these really helpful guides for managing my own rubbish, and if you get stuck, I hope they do too.
Yes, so if you have any questions from that video about plastics, about recycling, at all, whether that's your household rubbish or at school maybe, or if your school are doing anything to try and stop the use of single-use plastics, I'd love to hear it. Pop them in the Q&A, and I will read, or in the chat, and I'll read that out. But yeah, plastic is everywhere, and whilst it is actually quite a useful material, it's quite a remarkable material really. It can be very useful in certain situations and environments. We have begun to become too reliant on it, and that's had a really negative effect on our environment. I regularly go out and do litter cleans and litter pickups, and the amount of plastic waste that there is really quite shocking, you know, on beaches, but also inland as well. As in the video, it suggested loads of our litter that's inland makes it into our oceans, and that's what's hurting our ocean wildlife. I've got a few questions here. So if you have are able to, you can chat amongst your classmates and your teachers. So if you have a chat, and how long do you think it takes for a plastic bag to biodegrade? Have it, and if you put your answer into the chat, I'll read them out. So that's a plastic bag, and then a plastic bottle. How long do you think it takes for plastic bottles to decompose? And I'll read those out at the end. All right, Sophia, over to you.
Amazing. That video was so cool, Abby. It's so nice to see you out and about, like cleaning up litter and things like that. It's so cool, the work that you do. So I already said I really like rocks, and a lot of people will turn around to me and go, Sophia, rocks are so boring. And I'm like, no, they're not. And do you know why they're not? And that's because I'm really interested in climate change. And I know that a lot of other young people are interested in climate change too. And the story that rocks and sediments tell us about the climate in the past, really interesting, can help us predict climate change for the future. So that's why I started studying geology and geography, was because I wanted to learn how the past helped us predicted the future. And we talk a lot about the future, and we talk a lot about how we can stop climate change and things like that. And something that comes up a lot is using less oil and moving to electric cars instead of cars that are run on petrol. But not everything to do with electric cars is necessarily good for our environment. And I did some investigating into this, and I've made a little video about batteries in electric cars and why we think that actually sometimes they're not always great. And it's actually linked to our ocean as well, and it's an excellent ocean innovation. So I'm going to get that up on the screen right now for you guys, so that you can have a look with us.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia and I am your local Albury geology nerd. Geology rocks. Today let's talk about deep sea mining, its connection with electric cars, and how electric cars might be damaging our sea floor. Sounds a bit mental, they're not driving along it, I promise. We'll find out, roll VT. Electric cars are powered on electricity. Yeah, no way to fear. Unlike other cars, which run on petrol or diesel, the difference is that petrol's a fuel that stores energy, whereas electricity is a secondary fuel. So there's pure energy harnessed from the environment, and it needs to be stored in a vehicle some way. This is one of the biggest issues that we see with renewable energy. Wind, solar, wave, they're all intermittent energy sources. We can only get energy from them when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining, unlike fossil fuel energy sources, which are a continuous source of power as we burn them. So to ensure we have a consistent energy source, we need to be able to store this energy for when it's needed. It's actually super hard to store energy, especially when you need it to power a moving vehicle. But there are a couple of options. Hydrogen is one of these, and it can be utilised in vehicles in the form of fuel cells. These allow oxygen and hydrogen to combine, producing water and releasing energy. However, hydrogen is highly explosive and it does make it quite risky to store it in your car. The other option is batteries. A battery stores chemical energy and it converts it to electrical energy. The chemical reactions in a battery involve a flow of electrons from one material electrode to another through an external circuit. The flow of electrons provides an electric current that can be used to do work. But what's actually in a battery? Well, a bunch of metals, but most importantly right now, and for the purposes of this video, cobalt. Cobalt? Cobalt. This is a scarce, toxic and lustrous mineral that's found in the negatively charged electrode or cathode of almost all lithium-ion batteries used today. But the material plays a crucial role in stabilising batteries and boosting the amount of energy they can store, which is especially important in things like AirPods, phone batteries, and, you've guessed it, electric cars. Now, I just mentioned that cobalt's a scarce mineral, but it is found abundantly in rocks on the sea floor. You see my thinking now. But how do we get it from the sea floor? So let's learn more about deep sea mining. Deep sea mining is the process of retrieving mineral deposits from the deep sea floor. This is the area of the ocean below 200 metres, which covers 65% of the Earth's surface. As the deep sea remains understudied and poorly understood, there are many gaps in our knowledge of its biodiversity and ecosystems. This makes it really difficult for us to thoroughly assess the potential impacts and put in adequate safeguards to protect marine environments. It's probably worth saying at this point that deep sea mining hasn't started yet. It's just something that companies are exploring as an economically viable option for mineral extraction. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be a risk to our oceans in the future. So what are some of the potential impacts of deep sea mining? Well, firstly, the process would involve scraping the ocean floor with machines, which can alter or destroy deep sea habitats and cause loss of species, fragmentation, loss of ecosystems and function. This disturbance to the seafloor would have a huge impact on many species, as so many on the deep sea are endemic, meaning they do not occur anywhere else on the planet. In addition to this, some forms of deep sea mining will stir up fine sediments, that sit on the sea floor, for example silt and clay, and these will contain the remains of microorganisms. This will create sediment plumes. That's plumes of suspended particles. These might disperse far beyond the mining area and then resettle on top of or inside of other animals, causing impacts to the ecosystem. In addition, things like noise, vibration, and light pollution caused by mining equipment could have a really big impact on species such as whales, tuna, and sharks. There's also a risk of leaks and spill of fuel and toxic products. Ultimately, a better understanding of our deep sea is necessary in order to guide the mitigation strategies and proper enforce regulations in order to limit the environmental impacts of these activities. We need more environmental impact assessments, more baseline studies, and enhanced regulation. Ultimately, circular economy is the answer, as the repair, recycling, and reuse of products should be encouraged to help reduce the demand for the raw materials, therefore meaning we don't need to mine the deep sea in the first place. And there you have it, guys. That's how electric cars could potentially have an impact on our deep ocean floors in future, and also why not everything to do with renewable energy is environmental. I've been Sophia, your local geology nerd. I should probably grab the rocks. Where did I put them? Come here, rocks. Gone. I've been Sophia, your local geology nerd. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of the live stream.
Nice one, Sophia. Amazing.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting how, we talk so much about not using as many fossil fuels and being better for the environment, but sometimes we don't understand or appreciate that we can be having an effect on other parts of the environment that aren't to do with climate change. And I feel like we need to be really careful and protect all the animals on the seafloor. So sometimes it's better not to use as many batteries. But yeah, really interesting. So I think you guys were going to do a Q&A. We've got loads of questions coming in.
We do.
Abby, go to Abby, yeah.
Well, I'm just going to go straight into it. Thank you all for all of your amazing questions. We've got so many, and we will do our absolute best to get through all of them. So, Fia, keeping with your mining, is deep sea mining dangerous?
That's a great question.
That's from Newport Primary School, class 19.
Hi, class 19. Amazing question. So, in terms of for our animals, I would say probably is a bit dangerous because you're going into their habitat to take something away, and that has tons of repercussions on how they live, so how they spend time with each other, socialize with families, and their food chain, so what they eat. But in terms of is it dangerous to humans, probably not very. We do lots of extraction from the seafloor with fossil fuels as well. So it's something that's been quite studied in the past, and people have done a lot of it before. And it is just a case of being on a boat and sort of drilling down. So it's not really dangerous to humans, but I would say it probably is dangerous to animals, yeah.
Great answer. And just going back to my questions on the plastic bag and plastic bottles, how long does it take for them to biodegrade? So a plastic bottle, let's have a look what we've got here. West Ashted say, oh, that's for the bag, 750 years for plastic bag. Redwood's class, year 5 and 6, say 20 years for a plastic bottle. Alice West, 30 years for a plastic bottle. Okay, so a plastic bottle can and has been estimated to take 450 years to biodegrade. And that's even if it's surrounded by soil and water and has access to air, which they likely don't have in landfill. So it could take even longer. And a plastic bag is anywhere between 10 and 10,000 years. We don't really know because plastic bags have only really been around in the last 50 years. We haven't had enough evidence to suggest how long it takes for them to break down, because we're still finding some of the very first plastic bags perfectly intact within the environment. So that's terrifying in itself. But thank you for all your answers. Some of you were perfect And yeah, it's surprised me actually how much longer it could take those items to degrade. Okay, so let's move on to another question. Russell, I think, what is the biggest sea pollution hazard?
Great question.
I
Come
know.
on, unmute. Am I unmuted? Yes.
You're unmuted, we can hear you.
Good stuff. So what was the question? What is the biggest what?
Pollution hazard to the ocean.
What are the most polluting items? Oh, interesting.
Pollution hazard.
Oh, the worst pollution hazard, right. Let me think. Pollution hazard. There's so many ones that are going in. Personally, I think the worst one is, and this is a really weird idea, it's poo from cows. Right. So we have got so many cows on this planet, and they're all pooping away, like millions of cows, and they produce tons and tons of cow poo. And unfortunately, that poo has to go somewhere. And when it rains, it washes into rivers, which then wash into the sea. And just the same way as you might put manure on plants to help them grow, as soon as that manure goes into the sea, then it causes the plankton to grow. It sounds like a good thing, but the plankton grows so quickly that it turns the sea this green colour, and it's called a plankton bloom. And fish find it really difficult to live because it blocks their gills. And then what happens is the plankton die, and as they sink, they rot, uses up all of the oxygen in the seawater, which means even more sea animals can't live there anymore. Because of cow poo, right, getting washed into our ocean, there's now 500 oxygen dead zones all around the world. And nothing can live there because cow poo is taking away all the oxygen. So what we can do about that, it's a really easy thing, is just to be less cow. And it just means just have less beef, have less milk, less dairy products, reduce the number of cows. And that actually is going to help our ocean. Who'd have thought?
Awesome. Thank you, Russell, for that. Sophia, it's a nice one for you. How long do batteries in electric cars last?
That is a fantastic question. So it depends what kind of battery. We were talking a little bit about hydrogen fuel cells in that video, which is quite complicated and I don't completely understand the science, but they can last a really long time. With regular batteries in electric cars, I think it's something like 10 to 12 years, but don't quote me on it. Definitely get your teacher to look it up. But I think it's about 10 to 12 years.
It's a bit like recycling, which is a really complicated subject, because when you start looking into it, you think, well, it's recycling, it's easy, you know, different materials can be recycled or not. It is such a confusing thing to get your head around, even for somebody who tries to learn as much about it. And we're forever learning, so I can understand that. Peetham School have answered, I hope I said that right. Which ocean is most polluted? Russell, can you just really quickly tell us about how different oceans are kind of one ocean?
So different types of pollution, and we focus a lot on plastic. And so in terms of which ocean is the most polluted, I think generally the most polluted ocean is the Mediterranean. And that's because there is so many cities all around the edge of the Mediterranean, but there's only a small way in and out of the Mediterranean. And that's in Egypt with the Suez Canal and the Straits of Gibraltar in between Morocco and Spain. So it's a tiny little way for water to get in and out of there. But all those cities and all of that tourism that's going there and all the sewage that's going in and all the plastic and everything. So the Mediterranean is the world's most polluted sea. The Baltic, which is in northern Europe, is also really polluted, again for the same reason. There's only a little way in and out of it. And in fact, fish in the Baltic Sea are so polluted that they recommend if you catch a fish and eat one, you only eat one a year, because that is so polluted you get all of your pollution in your body, your kind of yearly dose, your annual dose of just one fish.
And just to add on to what Russell's just said there, I think you're kind of hinting at it when you asked the question, Abby. We talk a lot about different oceans, and the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean and the Pacific, but really all the oceans are interlinked, aren't they? I know Russell was saying with the Mediterranean, they're only just interlinked, but we really have one big ocean that crosses the whole of the world, and there's different areas of the ocean. So it's kind of sometimes hard to distinguish what the most polluted part is.
Yeah, absolutely. And this ties back sort of into a comment made of one of the facts in my video, which is also you might not live near the ocean, but all the streams and the rivers lead into the ocean as well. So everything is so perfectly connected so that the litter that you see on the street, that could one day end up in an ocean and be responsible for hurting a turtle or a whale or something. So it's really, really good question. We have readout class at St. Richard's in Dover. Hello, how do sea rocks appear? Sophia, would you like to answer that one?
Sea rocks as in rocks that are on the beach?
Let's say yes.
Yeah, oh my God, amazing question. Do you know how long I waited for someone to ask me this question? But good job, class. So if you've got a really pebbly beach, and I'm going to use the example of Brighton Beach, because I think we see that one on the TV quite a lot, and lots of beaches along the south coast are really pebbly. Those pebbles actually come from inside of our cliffs. So you can have a cliff that's made up of chalks, and you know the white cliffs of Dover are very famous, and we see them in lots of movies and things. Well, they've got lines of pebbles inside them called flints, and then when the sea basically attacks the cliff and the cliff will disintegrate, those rocks will end up in the ocean, and then they'll get sort of dispersed across the beaches along the coast, which I find really, really exciting. And that's one of the ways we can get sea rocks. There's tons and tons of other ways, but that's my favourite. So I think I'll just share that one with you today.
Awesome. I'm really happy that you got to answer that question.
I'm so happy. I've waited years for this moment.
What do you think our future will be like? That's from Birch. Maybe both of you should we could all answer that, but short sentences.
What do we think the future's going to be like?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an awesome place. And I think that because there was a scientific study that came out last year, and it showed that we have got the ability to clean our ocean and to sort all our problems out. We currently have the technology to do that, and we know how to do it. If we want to, we can sort our ocean out within one generation. So if we want to, we can sort this out by 2050, and the ocean will be as clean and as nice as it's always been. And this is why it's really important for people like you who are into science and are enjoying British Science Week to get into science, so you can be a scientist that helps work on the solutions to the problems that we're going to need. So this whole theme has been about innovation and ways that we can think about and look at the ocean in different ways, maybe. And we need you guys to do that. So that's what I'm going to say. Amazing.
Thea?
I think the future's going to be better than people say it is. We talk about, you know, climate change and pollution and all that kind of stuff, and it sounds really, really scary. But ultimately, there's so much amazing science out there that's going to help us sort of stop the worst issues happening. And as long as we all sort of collectively come together and make sure that we're doing our bit, and like Russell just said, grow up and help out, become a scientist when you're older, that would be so cool. Then I think the future's going to be fine. Yeah, I'm not too worried.
Amazing. I'm hopeful too. I think that given how much, I mean, even the interaction from you guys today and the fact that you're interested in British Science Week is really hopeful, but you will also be the business owners, the decision makers, the parents of, you know, our future, and you can do such great things now. And so I have real hope that it will still be a really great place. People just need to care and need to start, you know, feeling a bit more connected to nature and doing good things, which I am so impressed by the younger generations of our world. They have really, you guys are doing great. So yeah, I'm hopeful too. Have you got how much plastic ends up in the ocean every day? Really good question, and it's really scary. So 8 million pieces of plastic makes its way into the ocean every day. 8 million pieces, and 4.25 trillion macro and microplastics make it into the ocean every year, which is huge. And that is the current amounts as well. So that's why talking about recycling is good, and it's one thing, but we need to just stop using single-use plastics. That was a really good question. Next one. Why is there seaweed in the ocean, Russell?
Why is there seaweed in the ocean? So it's a really weird idea to think about. It's actually a really good question. That plants started in the ocean and then came onto land. And so a really weird idea is that sharks have been on Earth longer than trees have been. So life evolved or happened in the sea to start off with. And then gradually we're like, oh, maybe we could start going on land a little bit more. So seaweeds and things like that actually started life in the sea. And so they're just plants that haven't decided to go onto land yet. So seaweeds are older than trees. There you go.
Oh, incredible. Okay, so Gold Class, Abacus Primary School. Hello, what amount of sea life dies each year because of plastic? Mega question and a good question. So I think it's over 1 million each year. I know in 2018, over 1 million whales, dolphins, sharks, and turtles had been reported as being killed by plastic waste. It's probably more because that's only what was reported that we know about. Anyone else?
I would say it's really difficult to figure it out, because when you say like how many animals have died from it, when we say animals, we think about like big animals, like massive ones like whales and sharks and seals and all the ones that we see on TV. But actually there's loads and loads of teeny tiny ones that are affected by really small microplastics, and there's just no way of calculating how many organisms or living things are impacted by plankton. Impacted by plankton. Plastic overall. Got plankton on my brain. Plankton. I can't stop saying it.
Okay. Here's the question for: have you always been interested in what you do? That's by Readout Class at St. Richard's in Dover. Sophia, have you always been interested in rocks and what you do?
Yeah, like when I was 3, I really liked rocks. No, I haven't always. I can say that we went on school trips when I was about 8 years old, and we went to see a river which had a really cool bend in it. A bend in a river, you probably already know this, you guys. It's called a meander. And I just thought the bends in this river were so cool. I was like, I want to know why that river looks the way that river looks. And that kind of just started a whole journey for me. And every time we did a school trip, I would basically be the really annoying student at the front of the class going, why is that hill over there? Or why does this mountain look like this? And I just sort of realised that I really loved learning why the land and why the ocean is the way it is, and all the environmental stuff. So what about you, Russell?
What have I always been interested? I've always really liked the sea, and I went and I found some books that I'd written, like stupid little storybooks that I'd written when I was like 4, and they're all just full of like giant squids and sperm whales and all cool animals. And let's face it, all the best animals live in the sea. You say someone like, what's your favorite animal, and they say like, it's a fluffy kitten or a lion or something like that. They're just boring. But all the coolest animals live in the sea, and so it's impossible to not be like amazed by the ocean. And then you find out that we've hardly explored any of the ocean. So there's so many new animals that humans have never seen that are still hanging around in the ocean. That is why that is so exciting.
So exciting. Yeah. Okay, we haven't got too long left, so I'm going to try and sort of scooch past these. Scooch, that's a made up word. Go through these really quickly. Devere has asked, why do you think people litter? Great question. So me personally, I think it's a lack of awareness, and people just don't understand that, that they don't understand the consequences. They don't really understand what's going to happen to that piece of litter. But why don't you guys tell us? Why do you think people litter? Okay, Redwood's class, year 5, year 6, Burns. Is it true that after 450 years, a plastic bottle will turn into microbeads, so will still be out there? It's really difficult because there are 7 different types of plastic, and different plastic bottles are made up of different of those different plastics. Sometimes just one, sometimes a mixture. And yeah, when this plastic breaks down, it can become brittle, and it actually just breaks down into smaller pieces, which is why it's so important for them to be recycled. There was also a question about plastic caps, and plastic caps, again, if they're on top of the plastic bottle, there's a chance they'll be recycled, but quite often caps of bottles, glass or plastic, when they're loose, they actually just get lost. They sort of end up not going through the filter system, which is something new that I learned in the last couple of weeks. Hossam asked,
can we do a fun question, not just things about plastic? I want to end on with interestingly.
Someone asked what all our favourite ocean animals were earlier. I can't remember who it was, but someone asked that a while back.
I was going to ask from Hossam, what are coral reefs made of, quickly?
Do you want to do that, Sophia?
Yeah, sure. Coral reefs are actually alive. They are living organisms. So they have a relationship with other animals in the ocean, which we call symbiotic. It's quite a long word, that, symbiotic, but they work together in order to create this amazing reef. And it's made out of something called a coral polyp. So they are alive. Russell, do you want to add anything onto that?
No, I think, yeah, basically, one of the Charles Darwin, who's on the back of the £10 note, he spent ages trying to figure out how coral reefs are made, and yeah, they just grow. They kind of build their own houses and they live in it. Yeah, they're amazing.
It's really cool. There's a lot of calcium in them, calcium carbonate, but calcium being sort of the same thing that we find in milk. So there's a lot of that built into their sort of animal structure, which is cool.
Awesome. And we have, yes, I can't see where the question's gone now, but what is your favorite animal, your favorite sea animal? Russell, let's go to you first.
Okay, so people always ask me this, so I thought it's just easier to have them put on me forever. So my favorite one is an octopus, and so I had an octopus tattoo done, and I've got a whole talk about why octopuses are the best animal. I also really like manta rays, so I had one put on that arm, and I really, really love sperm whales, and of course, plankton.
They said pick one, Russell. You can't have all of the ocean animals.
Sophia, what about you?
I really, really like turtles. There's a turtle on my necklace as well, so we all have something with us that reminds us of our favourite animals. It makes me feel a bit closer to the ocean. But yeah, I love turtles because I think they are absolutely fascinating creatures, and there's nothing else really like them in our oceans. And I love that they come up on land to lay their nests, and then the tiny, tiny turtles all go down the beach into the sea when they hatch. And I was really lucky to see that when I was in Greece, working in Greece. So I definitely recommend going and having a look in a really safe way, if you can, with your family, once all of this is over and we can travel again.
And I think mine is the orca, the killer whale. I just have always loved them ever since I was really, really young. and love everything about them. I used to have a little money box which was in the shape of them, and just ever since then they've just been my absolute favourite. And you can, if you're lucky, spot them off the coast of Scotland, so they are closer than you think, which is I mean, I still haven't seen one yet, but that's on my like dream list. Russell, I have a few comments here about your moustache. So, Hossam, is your moustache real?
Is my moustache real? Just really quickly, yes. Look, it's attached. It's grown really long during lockdown, and I've got a big bushy beard. Normally, I'm a little bit better kempt, but I was trying to see how long I could grow my beard. Yes, it's real.
Well, Redwood class asked, how long does it take to groom your moustache every day?
No questions about the ocean.
It's really easy, actually. It takes less than 5 minutes. I use moustache wax. You just roll a bit in, curl it up, and off you go. Sometimes you have good moustache days. Sometimes you have bad moustache days. Bad moustache days are annoying, where it like bends and they go where they're not supposed to. I don't think it's going too bad today.
Okay. Class 27 from Tudor Court Primary. Have you ever encountered a rare sea animal?
Ever encountered a rare sea animal? I feel...
Depends on your definition of rare, doesn't it?
I mean, I would say that given that most wild marine animals don't particularly enjoy being around, not enjoy being around humans, but, you know, will be around humans. Have you ever encountered a marine animal up close, let's say?
Oh, I have in Malta. I was snorkeling and I found an octopus, and that was quite cool. So I was able to kind of play and interact with the octopus, and it was not sure who I was or what I was doing. But I also found a baby moray eel, and that was like looking at moray eels are as clever as dogs. So that was quite good fun to kind of look at and interact with. But I was aware they've got really sharp teeth and actually have 2 sets of jaws. Like they've got a main mouth, and they've got another little mouth inside their big mouth, and so I didn't want to get too close in case it was like, go away, and bit me. But, yeah, those are kind of some of my more memorable interactions with animals.
Sophia, you're like this. I was snorkeling in Egypt, and there was a gorgeous turtle that it took me completely by surprise. So I was sort of looking, I was actually trying to see manatees, and there was a seagrass. And then from underneath me just came this most beautiful turtle. And that will stay with me forever.
Oh, that's lovely. And I think we go out looking for our favourite animals, and we go out looking for like specific species or specific whatever. But ultimately, it's the stuff that takes you by surprise that's the coolest things. Like I went out on a trip looking for dolphins once, and I wasn't thinking at all about sharks. I didn't even think I would see a shark. I was just looking for dolphins, and you got your eyes peeled on the sea, and then suddenly this shark that was about sort of this long started swimming around in the water. And this shark is tiny. It was not a scary shark at all. Started swimming around the boat in the water, and I'm like, oh my god, look, check this out. And everyone got so excited because it's not what we came to see, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think any animal that you actually get to see, whether you're expecting or not, is pretty stunning, isn't it? When you get to observe an animal in the wild going about its own business, is magical. You know, even like seeing crabs along the beach and fish in the ocean is all pretty special. So I think we're at our time. We obviously have so many questions. I don't know if it's possible for us to respond to them sort of outside the session.
Well, what I was going to suggest that people did is, if you go to our social media handles, which is like just Google Incredible Oceans, search for that, or look on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or any one of those things. If you ask us a question, one of us will do our best to answer it. We've also got a YouTube channel where you go and check out all of our videos, and you can ask questions underneath those in the comments section. So have a go, and we'll try and answer your questions where we can. Okay?
Yeah, so for your teachers, our handles on social media are at Incred Oceans. We are Incredible Oceans on YouTube. All our videos are made for kids, so they are on YouTube Kids as well, so you can check them out. But yeah, at Incred Oceans. Drop us your questions and we'll try and get back to you in the next few days.
Yeah.
Oh, and we're also available for live streams in schools. Forgot to say that. You can find our website, Incredible Oceans, pop it into Google, it'll come up. There's an email address in there where you can get in contact with us, and we can come into your schools and do live streams or whatever for you guys, experiments, and hopefully answer your questions that way as well. So
we'll just finish on this one, which is from Redwood's class, and I think you might have mentioned something about the fact that you guys make your own poppies out of plastic, which is incredible. But this is a thank you, guys. Thank you. We are definitely thinking about how we can continue the war on plastics. These children are the future and must strengthen the message. We can save our beautiful planet. Thank you all. Yes. Well said, and thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure, and as part of the British Science Week, there's lots of other cool sort of classes coming up. There are other sessions today and then tomorrow too, so check those out. The link is somewhere, and it's been a pleasure, and have a great rest of your day. From me, Sophia and Russell.
Bye.
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 Thank you
Happy,
very much.
guys.
Fabulous talk.
Happy British Science Week.
Happy
Bye,
British
guys.
Science Week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Stop saying bye.